Within 2 months after foraying into the cement sector and sealing the second spot in the list of country's biggest cement manufacturers, Gautam Adani has entered another uncharted territory now, and the stakeholders in the sector are worried. Soon after Adani announced its plan to take part in the 5G auction, the shares of Bharti Airtel tumbled. The Adani Group has applied to participate in the 5G auction and will compete with the likes of the Reliances Industries and Bharti Airtel, but only for private captive networks. The group has clarified that it does not intend to enter the consumer mobility space, but the decision has spooked telcos who say that it will eventually bring the group into direct competition with them, as 40% of their 5G business revenues are projected to come from enterprises. Adani has certain potential advantages in the 5G enterprise segment. By virtue of straddling sectors like ports, power stations, utilities, airports, aircraft services, data centers, industrial parks, and manufacturing facilities, the business house already has a large captive base to build its own private network, and analysts believe that Adani will expand the business by also offering private network solutions to other enterprises. The result would be intensified competition for the country's telcos, with potential revenues from the enterprise segment, which is estimated to be the mainstay of the 5G business, and leasing of airwaves taking a hit due to Adani's aim of offering private captive networks as a service. In particular, the prospects of the cash-rich Adani Group sparking of a possible bidding battle could throw things out of gear for cash-strapped Vodafone Idea. The group will have to shell out a nominal 2,800 crore rupees for 20 years for a pan-India millimeter band spectrum to power its 5G private networks. It can also pay the sum in 20 equal installments, easing its overall annual payouts. The group could also go in for around 10 MHz of spectrum in the more expensive 3.5 GHz band. Even here, the bill would be affordable at 3,170 crore rupees for 20 years with similar long-term payments. If setting up private networks was the group's only intention, then telcos believe that it would have been cheaper for Adani to go through a different route. The government has cleared the setting up of captive private networks for enterprises and would allocate the spectrum directly, which would be cheaper as it would be given at an administrative price instead of through auctions. Take the example of Tata Communications, which has decided not to go through the auction route. Instead, it will wait for the government to give spectrum directly to enterprises. After buying spectrum from the auction, the conglomerate will be able to sell enterprise offerings like private networks as a service. And just like telcos, the group could also lease out 5G airwaves to enterprises that want to set up their captive networks. And there's a whole sunrise sector at stake. In India, the potential market size of private 5G services is pegged at an estimated $570 million by 2026. Over the next 3 years, the segment is estimated to grow at about 35% on average.
First of all, they will pilot some of these businesses, some of these offerings, let's say for their own captive use. And then once they have stabilized the solution, they will offer it to other enterprises. One, Adani has a captive use case. They understand they will understand the underlying market very well. So they will know how to use and where to use the 5G connectivity, where it will make a business case, and what are the requirements of such a customer segment. Second, Telecom requires investment. Adani Group has a capability to invest. That actually places them in a good position to compete with other telcos as well, especially Airtel and Jio. In enterprises, there are different sizes of enterprises, and it's a very different business. You have to have a sales force to actually drive enterprise business. There are many MSME clusters also where there is need for connectivity, but they're underserved, and there could be many more solutions which can be provided. So it depends on the strategy. We don't know right now. In terms of which segment they will go after, it could be by industry. It may not be limited to just. You are targeting every enterprise. It may be by industry itself, whether it's ports, airports, railways, right, data centers. Right, what are you targeting?
Telcos also fear that the Adani Group's long-term strategy could be to enter consumer mobility space through the acquisition of a telco or through taking a strategic position in one of them. The surprise telecom entry of Adani is not something new. The sudden entries of big corporations over the years into the space have shaken up the dynamics completely. For instance, Reliance Industries marked its entry into the telecom sector by acquiring a majority stake in Mahendra Nahata-owned Himachal futuristic arm, Infotel Broadband, which was the only company back then that had one broadband wireless access or BWA spectrum in all 22 zones in India. Infotel Broadband was later renamed Reliance Jio Infocom, and it is currently the leading telecom player in India, It would be interesting to see how Adani's entry would alter the 5G spectrum auction dynamics. Could this be a Jio moment for the enterprise telecom segment, where a new entrant with deep pockets, competitive advantages, and new technology ends up cornering a significant share of the pie?
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.
सब अच्छी दिख रही हैं यार, कौन सी खरीदूं?
ये तो वही बात हुई, 4000 शेयर्स लिस्टेड है, कौन सा लूं?
वो तो सबसे आसान है।
तुझे 5 पैसा नहीं पता?
अब तो सबको पता है। 5 पैसा पर है 4000 स्टॉक्स की रिसर्च, टेक्निकल टूल्स और इन्वेस्टमेंट आइडियाज। डाउनलोड 5 पैसा नाउ।
अब तो सबको पता है, investing made easy and rewarding with 5 paisa. Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.